KRRL-NTS net nightly at 6:30 p.m. W5FC. This is the W5FC repeater, PL110.9.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet. Oh yes, it's that time. It's time for Skynet. Does anybody need to use the repeater before we begin tonight's Skynet? If you do, speak now. I take that as a no. This is Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray. My name is Tom, and I'll be your world control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purposes are to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime, daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break very enthusiastically in your call sign. This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me, and stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on this frequency, which is, in case you haven't guessed, 146.880 megahertz with a peel tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or the famous or infamous Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Just go to the club website, which is whiskey5friedchicken.org. That's W5FC.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate in this net. It is about 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. They are general announcements. Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas event. It says where and when you can look through a telescope, but that's probably going to be a while. National Space Society events. Discussion topic of the evening was up. Space exploration and space history. Constellation of the week. Space launches of the week. Recent astronomical discoveries. Visible satellite passages over the next couple of days. Astronomical Q&A in a 73 round. All amateurs are licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. Maybe I should slow down. I will now take low power and short time check-ins. If you are one of those, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name and location, and let me know if you're low power or short time.
This is Whiskey 5 Golf, Uniform Sierra, Gus, far northeast Dallas, low power.
All right, I have W5GUS Gus in far northeast Dallas, low power. All right, I'm going to go ahead and venture out general check-ins. If you'd like to join us, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. RF, please.
November 5 Bravo, Bill in Irving.
Kilo Golf Lima Delta, Randy Remlin.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz Mesquite.
This is Alpha 5, Alpha Hotel, Robert and Richards.
Kilo Golf 5, Uniform Kilo Uniform, David Mesquite.
it's a bit of a slow start, but we'll get those folks checked in. I got N5BB, Mr. Bill in Irving, not Austin. Next station I got is Randy in, I can't read my own handwriting, Rolette, I think. Is it Kilo Golf 5, Golf Lima Delta? Randy, how badly did I mangle your call?
Not too badly. K5GLD, Kilo 5 Golf Lima Delta.
All right, thank you. I got rid of the G. Kilo 5 Golf Lima Delta. Gotcha, Randy. Next up, WB50ZL, Miss Brenda DeSoto, KF5JHA Chaz, our professional astronomer but amateur radio operator in Mesquite. AA5AH Robert over in Richardson at KG5UKU. That's David in Mesquite. I'll take additional check-ins. Please come now.
Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
This is Kilo India 5 Golf Romeo Hotel Melissa in Dallas.
Wow, it's like pulling teeth tonight, but I got two more. I got KG5W Victor Lima, that's James over in Carrollton, and KI5GRH, Miss Melissa in Dallas. By the way, I forgot to mention, I saw you in QST Magazine as a big contributor to public service activities. Check her out. She's on page 16 of, I think it's 16, QST Magazine. I'll take additional check-ins. Please come now.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Zulu, Bravo Lima, Bill, Palmer's Branch.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas.
Oh, they came to the arc 2x2. I've got KF5ZBL, Mr. Bill in Farmers Branch, KG5APL, Patrick in Dallas, all the usual suspects, as Louis would say. Let's see here. Let me go to Echolink. I will go to Echolink. I see some folks that are saying they're there. I'll let them go ahead and do voice if they would like. If you'd like to join us on Echolink, I'll give you extra time. Please come with your call sign name and where you're transmitting from.
Hello, Dallas. This is Whiskey Zero, Mike Bravo Charlie, Shane.
Golf 5, Zulu, Mike Golf, Joe in Arlington. Kilo Golf 5, Zulu, India X-Ray, Joe and Wiley. Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu, Whiskey J, near Weatherford.
Very good. I picked up four more. I got actually five. I got W0MBC. That's Shane and Bethany. Hi, Bethany in Blue Springs. I got KG5ZMG, Joe in Arlington. I think that's new to my record. Welcome, Joe. And I got another Joe, KG5ZIX over in Wiley. Thank you both. Both Joes are welcome. And then I got a KG5BZW. That's Jay near Weatherford. So all the J's have checked in, J letters, that is, including a J in person. All right, let me go ahead and open it one last time. Anyone else who'd like to join us this evening and just happen to wander in, please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from.
Alpha Foxtrot 5 Tango X-Ray, the biggest outlaw of them all. Crandall, Texas, BJ.
Kilo Bravo 9 Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean, Fort Worth.
All right, I picked up two more. I got AF5TX, that's BJ in Crandall, KB59SOK, that's Sean in Fort Worth. I think he's got a new call, I'm not sure, but at any rate, I've got Sean in Fort Worth, Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo. All right, I won't belabor the point. We'll get additional check-ins. A little slow tonight, which is a surprise, but there's lots of football on right now, so I suspect people are away for that. Got the Echolink, open round I got. General announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be of ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Please come now. All right, no problem. I've got a few here. Don't forget the AMSAT group actually has 3 nets available. I got to change that. It says 2, but in actuality, well, it's still technically correct. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m., you can go to the AMSAT net. This is the one that originates out of Houston, Texas. You can go to amsatnet.com, get the information. There's also a live audio link, or you can use Echolink. We do have the Dallas AMSAT Net East in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, every Tuesday, except during club nights, which is next week, so you have to wait 2 weeks, 8 p.m. on this repeater, which is 146.880 megahertz with a PL 110.9er. Tom, N5HYP is the net control. All are welcome to check in. It's first Tuesday of the month is DARC club night, so there's no AMSAT East. There is an AMSAT West every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, which is 147.140 megahertz with a PL 110.9er with a positive offset. Now, I won't go through all the nets, but practically every night of the week, well, every night of the week, there is a net on this repeater. We have at 6:30 to 7 o'clock is the National, I just had a brain block. It's a National Traffic System net. It's a trading net, by the way. All are welcome to participate in that. If you've never been on a formal net, this is a good one to start with, so by all means, check in on that. We have a couple of new nets now. We have on, one of them being, of course, the AMSAT net. We also have the CERT simulation net, and that is handled by Miss Melissa, KI5GRH. Melissa, I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about that if you would like. Maybe you can drum up additional business for the Friday net at, was it 8:30? What did I write down? 7:30. I'm sorry, 7:30. Melissa, KI5GRH, would you like to talk about that net?
Well, what an honor and a pleasure, even on Skynet. That's awesome, Tom. Yes, it's Cass. Great, the CERT City Simulation Radio Network net, that used to be a tongue twister, is every Friday at 7:30, and it's not just for CERTs, and anybody can come to our net, but sometimes we have simulations. So a couple of weeks ago we had a bike race simulation, and Kevin Grantham, who does MCOMnet, was our coach and helped us play different roles in an imaginary race, a bike race. Let me read that. And then just the other week, Tony was our net control coach, and he helped us practice with races and how to check into a Skywarn net. And, I mean, because you don't really get to practice that unless it's the real thing. So that's what our net is invented for you to invent simulations and simulated things that you just can't normally practice. You know, get as creative as you want. Because all we have to do is say, this is an exercise or this is a simulation. And we just have a lot of fun. And it's just a lot of fun. Good training, too. All right, so y'all are invited every Friday night, 7:30. Thanks, Tom. KF5 Jerry, expect to you.
All right, very good, and thank you. That's kind of my movie night, but I do listen in, and I try and watch the movie, too, at the same time. But if you've not listened in, that net, at times, it is absolutely hilarious. Cert City, the most accident-prone city in the universe. They have an emergency every Friday, and you can be a part of it. So, by all means, tune in and then check in to let her know that you let the net control know that you are listening in. All right, I have tonight's Afterglow info. This is checked by the U.S. Measures and Weights and Measures Department to make sure that it's accurate. So here is tonight's Afterglow movie info. The auditions were not going well. Starfleet Command's Admiral Nagura looked at the manifest and realized he had more candidates than starships. He glanced through the list. Matt Decker, prone to getting his hands stuck in shuttlecraft doors and beaming people to planets that didn't exist. Chris Pike, moody and spends his free time drinking Everclear with doctor types. Jim Kirk, constantly hitting on female yeomen and exotic alien women. Ripped shirts are the result of his romantic conquest. Nagura finally settled on one dossier. Robert April likes long walks in the park. Doesn't shout warp factor 1 when leaving orbit. Never lectures aliens about their messed up culture and believes in intergalactic peace. Nagura knew he had a winner, or at least not so much of a loser. He immediately sent the future captain of the Enterprise an invite to command Starfleet's newest ship. Join us for a fan-made movie about the first captain of the Enterprise, Robert April, in Star Trek First Frontier, tonight at 10:30 p.m. Yeah, you'd think. It took 5 years to make this thing. And it's a feature length. I think it's about 90 minutes long. It's not bad. It's actually kind of entertaining, and I rather liked it. But you can come in and talk about it or be rated or anything at 10:30 tonight. Come on by. Even if you don't see it, that's fine. We ask you questions about probably Star Trek-y things, so you're welcome to answer those in the yay or nay. All right, next up I have, well, let me go ahead and ask if there's additional check-ins. It says do check-ins now and record any names, the usual suspects. Anyone else like to check in now, please come with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot India, WB4MFI, Ted Dallas Low Power.
Kilo 5, Alpha November Papa, Allen in Dallas.
Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey, John and Coppell.
Very good. I picked up 3 more. 1 more than the usual check-in round tonight. So I got WB4MFI, Ted in Dallas, low power. I got you checked in. K5ANP, Al in Dallas. K5JDW, John in Coppell, now residing in his winter home here in Dallas. All right, let me go ahead. Let me look on Echolink. Did I miss anybody? I'm looking. I'm not sure. I don't think I did. Tell you what, I'll let Echolink. Anybody on Echolink like to check in? I'll give you a few extra seconds. Go ahead.
K5WX flying.
All right, they're oversleep on Echolink. I did hear a breaking station over RF. I think it's Kilo 5 Whiskey, Sierra, India. Just that lone station. Go ahead and correct your call if you'd like, and your name and your location. Okay, I'll come back to you later. I'll have additional check-ins. So let's see here. Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events where and when you can look through a telescope. I think Chaz, K5JHA, you're the guy here. Why don't you go ahead and give us information about what's going on with Texas Astronomical Society from KE5ICX.
Well, thank you, Tom. This is Chaz. Hey, I think I need to sign in on Friday nights. It sounds like an exciting time in Surf City. Yeah. Okay. The next Texas Astronomical Society Club meeting will be on October 23rd at 7:30 p.m. with guest speaker David Eicher. David Eicher is an American editor, writer, popularizer of astronomy and space. He's been the editor-in-chief of Astronomy magazine since 2002, so this is a good speaker. He has authored, co-authored, or edited 23 books on science and American history, and is known for having founded a magazine on astronomy observing Deep Sky Monthly when he was 15 years old in high school. David Eicher's most recent book is called Galaxies Inside the Universe's Star Cities. TASS club members will receive an email link to the meeting about a week in advance of the meeting, and hopefully TASS will resume some face-to-face meetings and maybe public observing sessions sometime after all this shelter-in-place is over. For more information about the Texas Astronomical Society, you can go to their website, texasastro.org, for details. KF5JHA, back to net control, world control.
Very good. Thank you, Chaz, and it's always thank you so much for what you do for this net. Chaz is a major contributor to this net every week, and he puts a lot of stuff together for two major segments. So I certainly appreciate it. He does a lot for Texas Astronomical Society as well. Next up is Bill, N5BB for the National Space Society National Space Society Events and Activities. So Bill, N5BB, go ahead from KE5ICX.
Well, it's easy for you to say. Thank you, Tom. This is N5BB. I am the membership director for the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. If we weren't in the coronavirus mode, we would have an in-person meeting on the second Sunday afternoon of each month. But because we can't do that, we're now holding WebEx meetings, which I host on the second Sunday of every month, starting at 4 p.m. So our next meeting will be Sunday, October the 11th, that's a week after tomorrow, at 4 p.m. The subject of the next meeting will be the daughter of astronaut Jerry Ross, Amy Ross, who works in NASA JS Johnson Spacecraft Center in Houston. She's responsible for studies on new spacesuits. And in particular, she's going to talk about some swatches of spacesuit material that are on the Perseverance rover that's on the way to, I think you got named that rover correctly, the rover that's currently on its way to Mars. And there is an instrument called Sherlock on the rover, and it will be able to test the characteristics of the swatches of spacesuit material even after they've been exposed for many months to the Martian atmosphere, sun, etc. So they're trying to take real measurements of what spacesuits do out in other environments, like the surface of Mars. So that should be very exciting. So, if you, we would appreciate you joining our group or the National Space Society. If you'd like to, you can send me an email at infib@arrl.org. Excuse me, arrl.net, or space@byrom.net. That's byrom.net. If you'd like to just listen to this meeting to see about how our meetings go and the presentations, send me an email, and I'll send you a link so you can listen in on this WebEx meeting on Sunday the 11th to hear from Amy Ross about the design of spacesuits. Sounds pretty interesting. That's all I've got right now, Tom. Oh, one more thing I nearly forgot. The National Space Society International Group. It's kind of interesting. It's called National Space Society, but there's chapters in other countries like India. They will be having they have space forums on many Thursday evenings. There was one this last Thursday evening about lunar exploration and business. Essentially, what are we going to do if we go to the moon? What are we going to build there? Is that economically viable? That was last Thursday. There's going to be another space forum this coming Thursday. I don't have the topic yet. It's on the 8th of October. And then they're going to skip some because of the presidential debates if they occur. And then the next one's going to be on October the 29th and then November the 5th. So, it's a good time to be joining the National Space Society to learn about all the neat things that are going on these days. There's a lot of manned and unmanned launches going on this year and next year. That's all I've got, Tom. This is N5BB.
Thank you, Bill. And I'll be the first to sign up for that. If you would send me the link for the National Space Society thing on spacesuits. I got a thing for that, so yeah, please do. I would love to see it virtually, and I can hardly wait when we get back on a regular schedule and go and attend meetings like this. National Space Society's had some good ones, and I've really enjoyed them the ones I've attended. This is KE5ICX. I'm net control for tonight's Skynet. I already had check-ins from last time, so let me just cut to the chase here. We'll go to the discussion topic of the evening. This showed up as an article, and I decided to go ahead and plug it in. One of my favorites is the Secret Manned Orbiting Laboratory program. I've done segments on this in the past, but additional information has come out, maybe not so recently. This article came from 2015, but it escaped my view until just the other day. So you ask yourself, what is the MOL? What is the MOL? Well, Manned Orbiting Laboratory was the U.S. Air Force's program that ran from December 1963 until its cancellation in June of 1969. The program spent $1.56 billion during that time, according to some estimates. While the program never actually lofted a crew space station, those nearly 6 years were quite eventful, featuring the selection of 17 MOL astronauts, the remodeling NASA's two-seat Gemini spacecraft, the development of the Titan 3C launch vehicle, and the building of an MOL launch site at Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. Early in the MOL program, its architects weren't quite sure what MOL was all about. Is the MOL a laboratory? Reads one of the newly released documents, which were put out by the National Reconnaissance Office, or the Nrol, or is it an operational reconnaissance spacecraft? Or a bomber? Good question. Even today, aspects of MOL's initiative remain secret. So what is it? I put a picture of me up, and I tried to. There's a picture of me up on the stream, and I'm sitting next to an MOL spacesuit, one of only a dozen that exist in the world, and it's right next to me. It almost killed me one time. Brenda can tell you about that. The anticipated duties of the MOL crews included reconnaissance activities under the code name Project Dorian. Dorian was a super powerful camera system that would acquire photographic coverage of the Soviet Union and other locations with a resolution better than the best unmanned system at the time, the NRO's first-generation Gambit spacecraft. But the historical documents suggest numerous other jobs were on the MOL docket for deliberation, including the use of a side-looking radar, the evaluation of electronic intelligence gathering gear, and the assembly and servicing of large structures in space. Also discussed was the use of the MOL carrying negatron missiles that could use non-nuclear warheads, the inspection of satellites, and the encapsulation and recovery of enemy spacecraft, which may have been accomplished using rocket-propelled net devices. Yeah, we all saw, what was it? Moonraker. For a spacewalking MOL crew member, a remote maneuvering unit was considered key for approaching and circumnavigating a target while the astronaut remained at a safe distance, quote, to prevent harm from an active defense or booby-trapped target. Notably, there was much reflection regarding the biological and psychological responses of MOL crew members in orbit for 30 days or more. The NRO's release of MOL data was timed for an event held October 22nd and this was in 2015 at the National Museum of U.S. Air Force, which is located at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base near Dayton, Ohio. Would-be MOL crew members and other program officials took part in the event, which was called the Dorian Files Revealed, the Manned Orbiting Laboratory Crew Members' Secret Mission in Space. This is what he says. Time often allows for facts to be distorted or forgotten, says James Odson, Chief of the Historical Documentation and Research at the Center for Study of National Reconnaissance in Chantilly, Virginia. But history allows the opportunity to rediscover and recover facts. MOL was born in the Cold War environment in which it was difficult to learn what the United States adversaries were up to. Patricia Camarisi, chief of the NRO's Information Review and Release Group, said the declassification of more than 20,000 pages of MOL documents was no easy task. It took over a year to get the stakeholders involved, to get them to agree to the declassification of additional material, and then to do the actual line-by-line review. Former MOL astronauts taking part in the October 22nd event included James Abramson, Carl Bobko, Albert Cruz, Bob Crippen, and Richard Truly. Those last two guys flew the space shuttle when they were merged into the program. Michael Yurimovich, who served as technical director of the U.S. Air Force MOL effort, also participated. He says, we were doing something that was exciting and important. We're going to also do something very important for national security. We're going to look behind the Iron Curtain, defend the nation while doing exciting things with manned spaceflight. After the termination of the MOL, Truly, Crippen, and Bobko became NASA astronauts, with Truly eventually ascending to NASA administrator status. Abramson led NASA's space shuttle program in the early 1980s, then later headed President Ronald Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative, dubbed the Star Wars program. For the MOL astronauts, the Wright-Patterson Museum event was a trip down memory lane. It got canceled on June 10th, 1969, a date that will live in my memory for a long time, which was one of the low points of my life, Crippen said. By the way, I have an article from Time Magazine on this because I was really fascinated by what MOL could be. Truly said MOL was not a trivial thing that we were working on. He thought the program had solved some complex problems before Black Tuesday, when delays, cost overruns, and other factors brought the program to an end. MOL, which would have zipped around the Earth in a polar orbit, pioneered complex human interaction with an automated film camera system, Truly said. It would have made it far better than it could have been done strictly as an automated system. In the view of Abrahamson, you try and say that, who was also assigned the job of building a training simulator for utilizing the MOL camera system, putting humans in the loop, was an added benefit. The MOL film camera was going to be so precise that it could have photographed Soviet airfields or snagged imagery of aircraft flight tests and the testing of specialized munitions. But the field of view through the camera would have been akin to looking down a soda straw, making human judgment important. The astronauts were supposed to use judgment and training and to say, look here, not over there. Don't waste a pass here, he added. In the end, the death of the MOL provided Abrahamson lesson he has applied to other programs. If you can just get an empty can up there, do it, because then you can build around it, he said. The strategy with Congress, not the technical challenge, was the biggest risk. According to Outzen, the reconnaissance historian, there is often a misplaced assumption that the canceled program has no important legacy. This should not be said of the manned orbiting laboratory program. The MLL program should be recognized for its rich legacy in both civilian and national reconnaissance space histories, he concluded. You can dig into the 20,681 pages of the MOL documents, pictures, and other resources. Go to w5fc.org. You'll find it under the topic this evening, and then talk about it. Now, there's also something kind of interesting about this, an aside. There is at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where this meeting took place, there is a Gemini capsule that was destined to fly. It had been on an unmanned mission. I think it was Gemini 2, and it was launched into orbit to check operations. And if you go to the Frontiers of Flight Museum, you'll find the Gemini 2 camera that took pictures of the instrument display while it was in orbit is sitting there. But this spacecraft was reused on the Titan 3C, and I showed a picture of the Titan 3C. There's also a link to what it looks like. It's a beefed-up Titan 2, and rather cool with two solid rocket boosters on the side. I think they're solid rocket. They took and drilled a big hole in the heat shield and put in an ablative hatch on there. So the idea was on that mission was it for it to return to Earth and make sure it didn't burn up in the atmosphere because you got a hatch on the blunt side of your heat shield. So since it's on display in the museum at Wright-Patterson, it suggests that it survived, and you can look inside and see the flight deck. All the instruments are intact. There's no singeing, nothing like that going on. But what made this important was it was the first spacecraft of its kind, a manned spacecraft that flew into space twice. Very first time, reusable. So that was kind of cool. So there you have it, some of the information on MOL. Some of this stuff went into the Project Keyhole, which also flew on Titan III rockets. Back in the day when you did this stuff, there was no digital downlink, and the only way you could get high-resolution stuff was to fly it into orbit and, excuse me a sec. I had to cough. Was to fly it into orbit, take the pictures, and then somehow or another get it back to Earth where it could be then developed. The SR-71 program was very good with this, with that Mach 3 airplane that flew at 80,000 feet or higher. But the MOL could do much more and take many pictures over a short period of time with its polar orbit orientation. So there was a lot going on. The Keyhole project actually took the cameras from MOL and put them in their version, a very large satellite in polar orbit, only it's unmanned. So you lost that manned decision while in orbit thing. So that was interesting. The MOL program, in fact, the article I was talking about came from Time magazine just before the Apollo 11 mission. And of course, at the time, they were talking about it as a long duration flight. What you could do with long duration flight, because we still had our sights set for Mars. But anytime you have the Air Force involved, you can suspect and probably expect it to have some sort of intelligence capability, which is exactly what it was. It was a pretty interesting program. Would have loved to see this thing fly. But what had happened was they had split up all your rocket scientists between both Apollo and the Air Force program, and it was to our detriment. But as you can see, the astronaut corps itself was supplemented by 3 MOL astronauts that ended up flying shuttle and actually ended up running NASA, so that's quite a fascinating thing. I'll bet you there's way more information on that. If you want to see the spacesuit, the Revision 2 MOL American Standard suit, you can go to Love Field. It is on display over in the main lobby area over there, and I think it will stay on display for a couple of more months. Does anybody have any questions about it? I'll go ahead and answer as best I can. KE5ICX with your call. I put you all to sleep. I have severe allergies tonight, so my voice may sound a little raspy. This ragweed is driving me crazy. Let me go ahead and ask if there are additional check-ins. Please come down.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Echo India Uniform, David, St. Paul, Texas.
KG5SMD, Camp Wisdom, Dallas, Texas. My name is Carl.
Very good. I picked up two more. I got KG5EIU, David over in St. Paul, and I got a new person. I got KG5SMD. That's Carl in Camp Wisdom. Welcome aboard, both of you. All right, next up is Was Up, and that would be Chaz, K5JHA. We are interested in what to see in the sky. You're up from KE5ICX.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Tom. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree is in astrophysics, and I am the astrophysics lab manager at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus. We call this segment of Skynet Was Up. Slide number 2 for our slide changer. The moon was full on October the 1st, just a couple days ago. So the current phase of the moon is a waning gibbous. The moon will be at its third quarter on October the 9th, just a few days from now. And the moon will be new on October the 16th. Slide number 3. I've talked about this for the last couple of weeks, and I want to continue that tonight, is that at the end of summer of 2003, it was toward the end of August, I don't remember the exact date, but a group of over 30 Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas members had gathered on the Richland College campus, and telescopes were set up by them, and having a public observing station to look at Mars was going on. Mars was at its closest than it had been since September the 24th in the year 57,617 BC. The sky was clear, and the news media must have done a really great job of getting the word out. There was no less than at least 25 people in line at each telescope for most of the few hours of the event. I wasn't in Dallas during the Halley's Comet craze, but this Mars event must have been at least equal to the 1986 Halley's Comet event. Slide number 4. So about every 26 months, both Mars and the Earth are on the same side of the solar system. This means that they are close to each other every 26 months. NASA uses this to their advantage by often sending spacecraft. Bill mentioned one heading to Mars right now. So every about 26 months, the two planets are close together, and that's when spacecraft are sent. Slide number 5. Opposition is when an object is opposite the sun, 180 degrees apart in right ascension in the sky as viewed from the Earth. If all the planets' orbits are circular and we're in exactly the same plane as the Earth's orbital plane, then the moment of a planet is at opposition is the same time as it would be as its closest approach. But this is not the case. Opposition and closest approach are usually a few days apart. On October the 13th, 2020, is the opposition of Mars, while October the 6th, just a few days from now, in 2020, is the closest approach. Slide number 6. All of the planets, including Earth and Mars, orbit the sun in elliptical orbits and are not precisely in the same orbital plane. Mars is closer to the sun during its perihelion and further away from the sun in its aphelion. The same is true for the Earth. If Mars is near its perihelion and Earth is close to its aphelion, when they're on the same side of the solar system, then the planets can be really close. This happens about every 15 to 17 years. The very closest that the planets Mars and Earth can come to each other is about 33.9 million miles. That doesn't sound close, but that's pretty close. And that's just ideal circumstances. Slide number 7. Back on August 28, 2003, the distance between the Earth and Mars was only 34.65 million miles. On the last close approach of Mars and the Earth on July 31st, 2018, we were separated by 35.8 million miles. On this close approach, I'm talking about the one that's happening in a few days, October the 6th, we will be separated by 38.6 million miles. The next really good close approach will be in 2035. but it will not be until the year 2287 on August the 28th for Mars to get closer than it was in the year 2003. Maybe I mixed you up with all those dates. I hope not. Anyway, slide number 8. It doesn't look like we're going to be having any public observing stations with the Earth-Mars closest approach, so grab your own scope, head outside during the first part of October. Actually, any time in October will be great. I understand there may have been a private observing station just a couple of nights ago. My call sign is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 9. On October 22nd, look in the southwestern evening sky to find the Moon, Jupiter, and Saturn all in conjunction with each other. Saturn and Jupiter are getting closer and closer together and will be in conjunction on December the 20th and also December the 21st, 2020. That's this year. The last great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn was on May 31st, the year 2000. But on the nights of December 20th and 21st of this year, the two planets will be so close together, they will appear like one object. Now, this will be during twilight. You know, they'll get lower and lower in the sky on those evenings as the night goes on. In telescopes, on those two evenings, we will be able to see both planets in the same field of view at the same time. Slide number 10, looking to the east on the evening of October the 28th, you'll find Mars and the Moon in conjunction. Mars will be close enough for you to be able to get a good look at it through a telescope. Yes, even then. Even toward the end of October. Let me talk about a couple of upcoming meteor showers in October. This will be slide number 11. There are 5 meteor showers we're talking about in October. 3 of them are in the first half of the month, which I'll cover right now. The Capricornus, that constellation is actually a giraffe. Did you know there was a giraffe in the sky? On the night of October the 4th and 5th, that meteor shower will have about half a dozen meteors per hour. The Draconid meteor shower peaks on the night of October 7th and 8th with between 3 to more than 1,000 meteors per hour. Sometimes that meteor shower will have a storm of meteors. That's what we call a storm when we have more than several hundred meteors per hour. That could be interesting to look at. The southern Taurids peak on the night of October the 9th and 10th with about half a dozen meteors per hour. I always suggest camping in a Texas state park to watch meteors. For details about meteors and meteor showers, visit the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org or the International Meteor Organization, IMO.net. And once again, I'd like to talk about the Texas Astronomical Society. Next meeting's on October 23rd at 7:30. It's a virtual meeting with David Eicher, the editor-in-chief of Astronomy Magazine, being the guest speaker. Okay, for details about that, check texasastro.org for details. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information? Or do you just have an astronomy question? I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question.
KE5ICX.
Mr. Grandfather of Skynet, what do you have as a question?
So you said, I believe Jupiter and Saturn are going to be so close in the field of view, you'll be able to see them. So how is this going to play out with the moons? How many moons potentially can we see between the two planets in one field of view? KE5ICS.
I'd have to look up exactly where the position of the moons of Jupiter are, but you'll probably see 2, 3, or maybe all 4 moons of Jupiter, plus the moon of Saturn, the bright one of Titan, And then you could see some of the fainter moons of both Jupiter and Saturn, depending on how large a telescope you have. But of course, the larger your telescope, oftentimes it's a larger magnification. You might not see some of those outer lying moons unless you move your telescope around. But you could see a lot of moons. That's a great question. By the way, Jupiter and Saturn will not be close to each other in outer space. They're hundreds of millions apart away. It's just their alignment makes it look like they're in the same area of the sky right now. Did that answer your question, Tom?
Well, thank you, and I'm going to call you Mr. Mooney from this point forward. Thanks very much. I appreciate it. KE5ICF.
I think that's a religion from, well, anyway. Oh, I do want to welcome the students from Brookhaven College that are listening and watching Skynet tonight. Students, just a reminder, you need to get that information filled out to get your stargazing class credit. Make sure you fill it out in the next 48 hours. So, slide number 14. As the moon wanes right now, so do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. Don't we need it? Until next week, keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5 JHA Chaz. Back to Tom, our net control. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, Chaz. And Cindy from Brookhaven College, or I should say the Brookhaven campus at Dallas College, has checked in. So I'm going to put her down. She may be listening, she may not, but she did say hi, so she's there. Or was there? Next up, let me go ahead and ask additional check-ins before I move on. Any additional check-ins, please come now with your call sign.
K5WX1 portable watch time.
Kilo Foxtrot 5.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Kilo Echo Juliet. Jonathan, Echo Link, Richmond, Virginia.
Kilo Bravo 5, Delta Lima X-Ray, Mesquite, Texas. Bill.
Well, I picked up two more, and I've got Jonathan, KF5KEJ. Jonathan's, I think, in Virginia now. He's part of the DARC, and I think he's still a member of DARC. Moved out of state here a few years ago, and here he checked in. Thank you, Jonathan. I also got Bill, KB5DLX, over in Mesquite. I've got you both checked in. Was there anybody else? I think the double resolved itself, but if there's anybody else, I'll get you now.
Kilo Foxtrot 5, Lima Kilo Golf. This is David.
Okay, picked up another. I got KF5LKG. That's David. I think he said Louisville. I'm not sure. David, where are you from?
I am mobile, northbound 35, south of Alliance Airport right now.
Very good. Got you, David, over mobile near Alliance, and I have you checked in. Was there anyone else? There might have been another double.
Alpha Charlie 9, Kilo Victor, Romeo, mobile and Hurst.
And I've got Romy, AC9KV. He's also mobile. And don't forget, we have the Lunch Bunch net. I think I skimmed over him today, but I'll remind you, Monday through Friday, Lunch Bunch, 12 until 1. There's a survey question, something about anything. It could be food, or it could be technical. It could be amateur radio related. He does a good net from 12 until 1. That came out of the COVID thing, so if you are interested, Romy does a great net from 12 until 1, Monday through Friday. This is KE5ICX. I'm net control for tonight's Skynet. Let us move on to Miss Brenda. She's in charge of space exploration and space history tonight. So, Brenda, you have it. WB5OZL from KE5ICX.
Thank you, Tom. This is WB5OZL. In space exploration news, SpaceX aborted the launch of a Falcon 9 rocket carrying an upgraded global positioning satellite for the U.S. Space Force on Friday, October 2nd. Launch controllers called off the launch about 2 seconds before the company's Falcon 9 rocket was supposed to lift off from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. It was scheduled to launch the next generation GPS-3 SV-04 satellite into orbit at 9:43 p.m. That's technically October 3rd. I haven't heard yet if it's rescheduled. If anybody has information on that, I'd love to hear it. I guess we'll find out eventually. Moving on, a robotic Cygnus spacecraft successfully blasted off from Virginia late Friday, carrying nearly 4 tons of gear, including a new space toilet, yay, to the International Space Station. The new space toilet is formally known as the Universal Waste Management System. I don't know why they didn't give it a cutesy acronym. Oh well, maybe we should think one up. The astronauts on the space station will test the $23 million commode for future use on station and by future crews on missions to the moon. Other experiments include a radish growing experiment and a cancer treatment experiment. It will arrive at the ISS tomorrow. We have a couple of birthdays this week. October 2nd, 1921, was the birth of Albert Scott Crossfield. He was the first Hispanic test pilot, and he was test pilot from 1950 to 60. He was the first man to reach Mach 2. That flight was November 20th, 1953, in a Douglas D-558-2 Skyrocket. October 3rd, 1935, Charlie Duke was born. He was American test pilot, astronaut, 1966 through 76. The 10th person to walk on the moon, had one space flight with 11.1 days in space, and he flew to orbit on Apollo 16, and that was in 1972. This week in space history, October 3rd, 1950, the transistor was patented by Shockley, Bardeen, and Bratton. And I have a picture of those guys here, because you all know what a transistor looks like. But, boy, was that a big deal. We no space without little bitty electronics. Then on October 1 in 1913, Robert Goddard filed his first patent for a rocket apparatus. Goddard is considered the father of rocket propulsion, but it was only through external funding, like grants from the Smithsonian, that he was able to devote his life to research. Here's an anniversary. On October 1st, 1958, NASA officially began operation. In the 62 years since President Eisenhower signed off on NASA's creation, we've learned and accomplished more than many of NASA's founders likely ever dreamed. And finally, September 28th, 2008, SpaceX announced that the Falcon 1 rocket successfully launched and achieved Earth orbit, making it the first privately developed liquid fuel rocket to achieve this major milestone. Okay, back to net. This is WV50ZL.
Very good. Thank you, Miss Brenda. This is KE5ICX. My name's Tom. I'm net control for tonight's Skynet. Let us continue. I will go to Chaz again. Run back to the radio, Chaz. Well, actually, I know you have a radio in every room. So wherever you are, grab that radio, press the push to talk, and tell us about Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week for October 3rd, 2020. From KE5ICX.
Tom knows I have numbered HT radios. How many do I have now, Tom? I forget. Brenda, I have an idea for an acronym for the new toilet. Flight, lavatory, in space, habitat. That would spell out flush. Okay, let's get back to the business at hand. Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year, out of the 88 total constellations, Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky in a year. In her honor, we have continued this tradition of the constellation per week. Miss Carolyn's constellation of the week this week is Capricornus, the sea goat. Now, what is a sea goat anyway? A sea goat has a body of a goat from the waist up and the tail of a fish that would be waist down. It's a very unusual creature, even for mythological standards, because the two halves don't seem to make a whole lot of sense together. Goats are designed to climb steep and rocky cliffs, while fish are designed to move smoothly through water. Okay, I don't know how this connects together, but it does. Neither half complements the other. In fact, they almost make it completely impossible as a creature altogether. Capricornus is the 40th largest constellation in the sky, occupying about 414 square degrees. Even though Capricornus is the second faintest constellation in the sky after Cancer, it is associated with myths and images that go way back into the BC years. The story of Capricornus, one of them originated with the Babylonians and Sumerians. Well, several of them have. Sumerians knew it as a goatfish, while Babylonians, star catalogs dating back to 1000 BC, mentioned the constellation of meaning also a goatfish. Really strange, two different cultures. Deneb al-Jadai, which is the Delta Capricorni star, is an Arabic name for the tail of the goat. It shines at a magnitude of 2.82 and is about 50 light years away. It's a spectral type A7. A-type stars are generally blue-white in color, and since Delta is an A7 star, it is much more white in color than blue. It is slightly variable due to the fact that it is eclipsing binary with a period of just over a day. In Burnham's Celestial Handbook, Robert Burnham Jr. notes that about 4 degrees northeast of Delta, which is the star we're talking about, near Mu Capricorni, is a spot where the planet Neptune was first detected at Berlin Observatory on September 25th, 1846. Among the mythology associated with Capricornus is the Roman legend that Capricornus was one of the Neptune's offspring. It is therefore fitting that the planet Neptune was discovered in Capricornus. This is a fact that might have some influence of why it was named Neptune, but there's no confirmation of that taking place. Al-Jadai is an Arabic name for the goat, which is another star that I want to talk about, a wide visual double star. The bright star Alpha 2, that's the brightest of the pair, which shines at 3.56 magnitude, and the fainter Alpha 1 shining at magnitude 4.24 magnitude. Both stars are type G, are yellow, and both have small companion stars. Alpha 1 and Alpha 2 themselves, however, are not a true physical pair. Alpha 2 is about 100 light years away, while Alpha 1 is about 500 light years away. Sharp-eyed observers can see both stars with an unaided eye, and they are easily split with binoculars or a finder scope. They both appear yellowish white in color. Oh, I think I already said that. We are up to slide number 17. M30 is a globular cluster discovered by Charles Messier himself. It's his 30th object on that list. Yeah, that's why it's called M30. He discovered it on August 3rd, 1764. Messier's small instruments were not capable of resolving the star cluster into stars, so he described it as a nebula. It is generally agreed that the star cluster was probably first resolved into stars in 1783 by William Herschel, who had a much larger telescope at his disposal. For many years, M30 was believed to be around 40,000 light years away, but recent observations using much more advanced equipment and techniques have revised the distance down to 26,700 light years away, almost cutting the distance in half. Visually, M30 is noted having a small, bright, dense core with many having difficulty in resolving it. Robert Burnham, Walter Scott Houston, Stephen J. O'Meara all make note of this in their writings. I only have a couple more objects, deep sky objects I want to talk about. Slide number 18. NGC 6907 is a barred spiral galaxy. Its brightness is listed as 11.9, which makes it quite faint. In his Constellation of the Month article in the Spectrum, that's the newsletter for the Texas Astronomical Society, Dave Hutchinson wrote, "My attempts at observing this galaxy have resulted in my seeing the rather dense barred spiral part of the galaxy, but I was never really able to conclusively see its bright arms." Slide number 19, NGC 7103, is really a faint object at magnitude 14.88. It's an elliptical galaxy and is definitely a challenging object. David Hutchinson had to use the Lone Star Observatory 24-inch telescope to see it, but he was able to tell that it was an elliptical galaxy. He could also see nearby NGC 7104. If you're watching the video portion of Skynet, there's a picture that shows 7103 and 7104 really close together. 7104, which is even fainter than 7103. Large aperture and a clear sky and dark skies are a must for this object. And this is KF5, JHA, and this is Skynet. There are more astronomical observing program objects in the constellation of Capricornus, the sea goat. I've just given you a sampling of a few of those objects. The Astronomical League has over 60 different observing programs, and they're about ready to add some more, so the list might go up to over 70 different observing programs. And each one of them have about 100 objects. If you observe about 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pen in about a year. Slide number 21, and this is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. Capricornus, the sea goat. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words that I've borrowed in the deep sky objects that I've used tonight. I also used some information from a website, constellation-guide.com, for information. It's a great place to go to get detailed information about constellations. Next week, I'll take a look at the constellation Microscopium, one of the modern-day constellations. I'll bet you understand it's a microscope, yeah. KF5, JHA, Chaz, back to Tom, net control. I'm sorry, was that world control?
Thank you, Chaz. Actually, I had my tape sent out for dry cleaning, so maybe it's just net control for tonight, but next time it will be world control with a freshly dry cleaned cape and skull cap. They're matching, by the way. Just thought I'd mention that to you. Okay, this is KE5ICX. I'm net control. Maybe world control. Well, dry cleaning control tonight. Let's see. Let me go ahead and ask if there's additional check-ins at this point. If you'd like to join us, or if you have any questions, please come now with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from. All right, hearing none. But Chaz, I wanted to let you know, Cindy over on YouTube, she's watching on YouTube. She says, "I am here." I think she took some objection to the fact that I said she might or might not be there, but she says she is, and I believe her because she typed it out and said, "I am here." So I put her on the list. She's official. She's a part of this list. Cindy from Brookhaven. I can't even talk. Okay, let me move on to the next section. Space launches for this week. Actually, they go more than just this week. Let me tell you what I got. As you know, the Starlink 14 launch was scrubbed, so 2 seconds. It is supposed to launch from Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral in Florida. It will be the 15th batch of approximately 60 satellites for the SpaceX Starlink broadband and network, a mission designated Starlink 14. On October 14th, we have the Soyuz ISS mission 63S. Russian government Soyuz rocket will launch the crewed Soyuz MS-17 spacecraft to the International Space Station with members of the next expedition crew. The capsule will remain at the station for about 6 months, providing an escape pod for the residents. The rocket will fly in a Soyuz 2.1A configuration. Also in October, we have an Atlas V Nrol 101 launch. It will launch a classified spacecraft payload for the U.S. National Reconnaissance Office. The rocket will fly in the 531 vehicle configuration with a 5-meter fairing, 3 solid rocket boosters, a single Centaur upper stage. The mission is changed from the earlier planned 551 configuration. This will be the first launch of an Atlas V with the new Northrop Grumman-built GEM-63 solid rocket motors, replacing the Aerojet Rocketdyne AJ-60A solid rocket motors used on previous Atlas Vs. It's a heavy lift. Now this is kind of interesting. Soyuz Falcon I-2 will launch August 16th, 17th, or overnight from Messier, French Guiana. An Ariane Space Soyuz rocket designated VS-24 will launch on a mission from the Guyana Space Center in South America. The Soyuz will carry the Falcon I-2 high-resolution Earth imaging satellite for the United Arab Emirates. Built by Airbus Defense and Space with an optical imaging payload from the South Alina Space, the Falcon I-2 is the second of 2 surveillance satellites ordered by the UAE's military. The Soyuz 2-1A, or STA rocket, will use the Fregat upper stage. This is delayed from October 15th to November and switched from the Vega launcher after a launch failure with the Falcon I-1 spacecraft. This is from the March 6th problem launch, I believe. On October 17th, we got the Soyuz GLONASS-K launch. This is from the Cosmodrome in Russia. The Soyuz rocket will launch the GLONASS-K navigation satellite, which is an upgraded spacecraft for Russia's positioning and timing network. The rocket will fly the Soyuz 2.1B, that configuration with the Fregat upper stage. Do you recognize a pattern here? The Soviets only used two different rocket types, the Proton and the Soyuz, or the old R-7 design, in case you wanted to know. And then finally, October 23rd, we've got a Falcon 9 Crew 1. Are you ready for this? The Launch Complex 39A. Yes, Kennedy Space Center, where they launched all the Saturn V's. The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket will launch a Crew Dragon spacecraft on its first operational flight with astronauts on board the International Space Station. NASA astronauts Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, and Shannon Walker, and Japanese astronaut Tsuyoshi Noguchi will launch on the Crew Dragon spacecraft. The Crew Dragon will return to a splashdown at sea. And if you're a fan of NASA Channel, you will find that they had that, they actually interviewed the crew today for that mission. So always check in on the NASA Channel, because we geeks always do that. Okay, let's see. Next up is Miss Brenda, I believe. Let me see. Yes, recent astronomical discoveries. Brenda, WB50ZL, the net's yours.
Thank you. This is WB50ZL. This article is entitled, Venus Might Be Habitable Today If Not for Jupiter. It's Jupiter's fault. Venus might not be a sweltering, waterless hellscape today if Jupiter hadn't altered its orbit around the Sun, according to new UC Riverside research. Jupiter has a mass that is 2.5 times that of all other planets in our solar system combined. Because it is comparatively gigantic, it has the ability to disturb other planets' orbits. Early in Jupiter's formation as a planet, it moved closer to and then away from the Sun due to interactions with the disk from which the planets form, as well as other giant planets. This movement in turn affected Venus. Observations of other planetary systems have shown that similar giant planet migrations soon after formation may be a relatively common occurrence. These are among the findings of a new study published in the Planetary Science Journal. Scientists consider planets lacking liquid water to be incapable of hosting life as we know it. Though Venus may have lost some water early on for other reasons and may have continued to do so anyway, UCR astrobiologist Stephen Kane said that Jupiter's movement likely triggered Venus onto a path toward its current inhospitable state. One of the interesting things about Venus of today is that its orbit is almost perfectly circular, said Kane, who led the study. With this project, I wanted to explore whether the orbit has always been circular, and if not, what are the implications of that? To answer these questions, Kane created a model that simulated the solar system, calculating the location of all the planets at any one time and how they pull one another in different directions. Scientists measure how non-circular a planet's orbit is between 0, which is completely circular, and 1, which is not circular at all. And the number between 0 and 1 is called the eccentricity of the orbit. An orbit with an eccentricity of 1 would not even complete an orbit around a star. It would simply launch into space, Kane said. Currently, the orbit of Venus is measured at 0.006, which is the most circular of any planet in our solar system. However, Kane's model shows that when Jupiter was likely closer to the Sun about 1 billion years ago, Venus likely had an eccentricity of 0.3, and there is a much higher probability that it was habitable then. As Jupiter migrated, Venus would have gone through dramatic changes in climate, heating up, then cooling off, and increasingly losing its water into the atmosphere, Kane said. Recently, scientists generated much excitement by discovering a gas in the clouds above Venus that may indicate the presence of life. The gas, phosphine is typically produced by microbes, and Kane said it's possible that the gas represents the last surviving species on a planet that went through a dramatic change in its environment. For that to be the case, however, Kane notes the microbes would have had to sustain their presence in the sulfuric acid clouds above Venus for roughly 1 billion years, since Venus had last had surface liquid water. A difficult to imagine, though not impossible, scenario. There are probably a lot of other processes that could produce the gas that haven't even been explored, Kane said. Ultimately, Kane says it is important to understand what happened to Venus, a planet that was once likely habitable and now has surface temperatures of up to 800 degrees Fahrenheit. I focus on the differences between Venus and Earth and what went wrong for Venus so we can gain insight into how the Earth is habitable and what we can do to shepherd this planet as best we can, Kane said. All right, this is from ScienceDaily.com. Back to net, WB50ZL.
Thank you, Miss Brenda, and this is KE5ICX. I'm net control for tonight's Skynet. Let's see, we've got 4 minutes left. What can I tell you? Well, let's see. We have visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, or passes as you see fit. Let's see. We have the International Space Station. October 7th has a good pass. Let me see what it says here. Minus 3.5 magnitude at 2024. Out of the northwest, it reaches its highest point at 65 degrees at 2027, and it falls at 2028 at 41 degrees, so it goes into shadow in the south-southeast. Now, let me tell you something before I continue on that. There's also one on October 8th, but why does it make a difference? Well, first, it's very brilliant in the sky. Secondly, they do have the AM 2-meter 440 D710 Kenwood radio, I believe they're using. That's programmed for crossband repeat. So you'll be able to talk to 5 different states on less than a watt. That's pretty cool, so keep that in mind. Let's see here, and you can spot it very easily. What'd I do? October 8th. Well, let me go back to where I was. Whoops, because now I don't have the information. Hold on. I had to go back here and look. October 8th, minus 3.7 magnitude at 1937 local time out of the northwest. It reaches highest point at 1940 at 63 degrees, not a bad pass, and then it falls at 1943 local time to the southeast. Then the only other thing I got out of all of the usual satellites, I got the North Korean satellite, which has been inert for years now, probably the last 4. Maybe 5. Boy, how long has it been since they launched that thing? Forever. We have October 5th, 6.4 magnitude at 7 a.m. local time, reaches its highest point almost directly overhead at 7:04. It falls at 7:07 to the south-southwest. Then on October 9th, we have a 6.9 magnitude, 6:49 a.m. Well, it's military time, so 6:49 a.m. Reaches its highest point at 6:53 at 69 degrees, and then falls at 6:56 due south. So that looks like it might be a
I'm completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
If it will let me. Yeah, directly overhead. Yeah, that's a good pass. Magnitude's a little faint, but you may be able to see it, at least with binoculars, if you're so inclined. All right, looks like we are at the bottom of the list. I will take additional check-ins. Please check in now if you'd like to join us. This is the end of this net, but we got another one coming up. But if you'd like to receive credit, either at Dallas College or on this net, or both. Well, come with your call sign. Well, if you have a call sign. If you don't have a call sign, you're not allowed to talk. But everybody else, you're allowed to. So please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from. Man, that's it? All right, fine. Be that way. We had 29 check-ins this evening. 29! And thank you for all who checked in. We hope you join us here next week and every Saturday at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. You know I would say that. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets, and boy, do we have them. Try your hand at this, which is actually a lot of fun. Send an email to nets, N-E-T-S, at w5fc.org. You can follow topics, discussions about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources. We've been doing this for, 8 years? So they're all out there, including Miss Carolyn's stuff when she did them. Until next Saturday night, this is Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray. My name's Tom, and I'll be closing the net at 22:31 local time, returning the repeater to normal amateur use for the next 5 minutes. 5 minutes. And then we will be discussing the fan film called Star Trek First Frontier that inexplicably and amazingly came out last week, even without Paramount's approval. So we'll be discussing that one in about 5 minutes. Go powder your noses and come back then. We had 29 check-ins. Thank you, everybody. See you in 5. This is KE5ICX. I'm clear.
Flight, lavatory, usable in space habitat. It's an acronym. Flush. This is KF5JHA.
Anything for a joke. All right. Go back, turn all the radios off, and put them all on chargers, all 10 of them. KE5ICX. Okay, who has the net? Tell me now. Who has the net? KE5ICX. Oh, I thought as much. That's okay. I'll take it tonight, of course. And I'm a horse. I just did a net, but I did a juxtaposition thing, and so all right. Here we go. So let me start. What is this? The Afterglow Movie Net. This is what we do at 10:30 when we start talking about movies after Skynet. We've been doing this for, I guess, a couple of years now. Let me reset. And this movie was picked by Brenda, as always, Star Trek First Frontier. Now, this film actually came out about 10 days ago. It's over on YouTube. You can watch this thing. There is no synopsis or plot. I had a little trouble following it because it kind of had a lot of the same thing in it, but overall had very much the vibes of the original Star Trek series that aired from 1966 to 1969 on Star Trek, so on NBC, and it was the original Star Trek. This show had all that vibe going for it, and the fact that we learned in an episode of the animated series from 1973 called The Counterclock Incident that Robert April was actually the first commander of the USS Enterprise. So if you're going to buy into the cartoon canon, which most people kind of do, even though Gene Roddenberry on his dying bed said, no, don't use that, everybody did anyway. Robert April. And by the way, in the original story treatment, I guess it was like 12 pages that he put out for NBC, the original commander, captain, was Robert April. Now, Robert April has become canon in, of all things, Star Trek Discovery. He's listed as the first commander of the Enterprise. So if it shows up on screen, the guy exists, even though he doesn't really exist. And now that we've got, was it Captain Pike, who appeared only in 2 episodes of Star Trek in a flashback for the pilot, why not have the commander before Captain Pike? So there you have it. So what was it? Let me read you. I can't tell you really the plot because, gosh, I don't remember a lot of it. Let me tell you what I remember. They take the ship out. There's people. This race that look like a bunch of tin cans from Doctor Who are trying to take over the Enterprise. They've been awoken from a deep sleep. They live on a moon or something that looks like a moon around Jupiter. The Enterprise is sent out without warp drive. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, the motion picture. To intercept and figure out what these guys are doing. So, let me see here. It says, I'll just mention this, according to the director, you can find some special Easter eggs in the film that were plucked from various science fiction films. I don't tell you what they are. Oh well. It was fan-made. Now, if any of you don't know, is a few years ago, Paramount Pictures or Sony Entertainment, it's all under one roof now, said, nope, you're not allowed to make a movie more than 10 minutes long. Can't have the word Star Trek in it. You got to buy all our junk to use in your Star Trek film. You can't call it Star Trek. They're lawyers talk. So we looked at it and said, okay, fine. So what did they do in this film that made it so cool, or made it kind of a buzz over the last week? They used an 11-foot model, same size as was used in the original Star Trek series and is at the Smithsonian. By the way, I have to admit, it looks pretty darn good. And it has its own shuttle bay in it, which is pretty cool too. And they have a model of a shuttlecraft going into the shuttle bay. So if you like your Star Trek old school, this thing looks pretty darn good. Yeah, there's some CGI in it, but the models, the actual spaceships that are used in this thing, look pretty darn good. So I just thought I would mention that. So let me read what I wrote up for this thing in case you missed it earlier, since I have fun writing these up. It says, tonight's Afterglow movie info, the auditions were not going well. Starfleet Command's Admiral DeGurra looked at the manifest and realized he had more candidates than starships. He glanced through the list. Matt Decker, prone to getting his hands stuck in shuttlecraft doors and beaming people to planets that didn't exist. Chris Pike, moody and spends his free time drinking Everclear with doctor types. Jim Kirk, constantly hitting on female yeomen and exotic alien women. Ripped shirts are the result of his romantic conquests. Nagura finally settled on one dossier. Robert April likes long walks in the park. Doesn't shout Warp Factor 1 when leaving orbit. Never lectures aliens about their messed up culture and believes in intergalactic peace. Nagura knew he had a winner, or at least not so much of a loser. He immediately sent the future captain of the Enterprise an invite to command Starfleet's newest ship. And it says, join us for the fan-made movie about the first captain of the Enterprise, Robert April, which is what we're doing right now, Star Trek First Frontier. Hopefully you've seen it. We'll see what happens with check-in. This is KE5ICX, and this is how we play this game. We go ahead and discuss the plot, we discuss the characterization, and we discuss usually special effects and everything else after that. Depending on how many people we got, we may go down through further iterations. Now, here's the game. Here's the deal, as somebody says. You don't necessarily have to have seen it. You can talk about Star Trek, the original series, or you can talk about amateur productions and mimicking the original series or any other, and how that all plays in to, I don't know, Star Trek tonight, which is what we'll be talking about. So it's okay. If you haven't seen it, please check in anyway. Sometimes some of the best observations come from people that haven't even seen the darn film. Weird? Yes. Improbable? Absolutely not. So let's go ahead and get started. If you want to join us this evening, please come down with your call sign name. Did you see Star Trek First Frontier? That does not knock you out. Please go ahead.
Kilo Golf 5, zombies need jobs. Frank in Flower Mound. And yes, I saw the movie.
November Golf 5, Yankee, Allen in North Garland, and yes, I saw the show.
We'll see what happens. Okay, I got KG5, ZNJ. Frank, he's back. Radio's Frank is back in Flower Mound. I got NG5Y, that's Alan. And Alan, where are you from again? I know who you are, I just don't remember from where.
North Garland.
Thank you, North Garland. I got you both down as having seen Star Trek First Frontier. Come on, people. Let's step it up. Get in here. Give me your call sign name and location. Tell me if you saw Star Trek First Frontier. A no does not automatically get you in trouble, so go ahead.
WT9V, didn't you hear me checking in on the wrong repeater? Michael, Plano. No, I didn't. I need more spare time.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in DeSoto. Yes, I saw this movie, and it eats into my spare time.
Kilo Echo 5, Romeo Foxtrot Zulu, Darwin in Garland.
And, yes, I saw this one.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo, Zulu Whiskey, Junior Weber. I thought them. Kilo Golf 5, Papa, Mike, November, James, Oklahoma. I saw the movie.
Not so bad. I got WT9V, Michael in Plano. No, he didn't see it, but we're still going to ask questions about it, so there. WB50ZL, Miss Brenda in DeSoto. Yep, she saw it. KE5RFZ, that's Roland and Garland. He did see it. KG5BZW, that's Jay near Weatherford, not in Weatherford, but near Weatherford. Yep, he saw it. KG5PMN, James in Oklahoma. I think it was Oklahoma City. I know you're in Oklahoma for sure. One of our regulars, he says, yeah, he saw it. Any additional check-ins, please come down.
Kilo, Bravo 9, Sierra, Oscar, Kilo, Sean, Fort Worth. Yes, I've seen it.
All right, picked up one more. KB9S. Okay, that's Sean in Fort Worth. Yep, he saw it. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Let me look over an Echolink. I think everybody is accounted for. The usual suspects have checked in. So we're going to go to, I'm going to go in order. Why not? That works for me. Frank, Radio Frank, KG5ZNJ, over in Flower Mound. I think it's Flower Mound. Frank, tell us, what did you think about the plot for Star Trek First Frontier from KE5ICX?
This is KG5ZNJ. Well, this one's a fan-made film, so, you know, the expectations aren't going to be so high, and I want to be nice to them because they did do a decent attempt, you know, for that kind of a thing. And some of the effects were actually surprisingly good, some not so good. But I have to be me, so I'm going to be a little bit mean in a fun way. So here's the deal. When you have people like this trying to make a fan-made movie, it's a challenge. Because it's going to be comprised of Star Trek superfans, basically. And they have to be motivated enough to make an actual fan film to get the money and pull it off. But the problem is, they just run out of talent really fast. So, unfortunately, that's kind of what happened here. So, most of the people involved in this, well, they didn't look as bad as the Simpsons comic book guy. But, you know, that Enterprise, it's pretty clear they need a personal trainer in there. I don't know, maybe they could have got Tony Little. You remember the guy there who used to pedal those Gazelle machines in the 90s? I'm sure he needs a job, so I don't know. That could have probably been a connection that might have needed to happen. I like the uniforms. Those were nice, especially the mustard yellow velour turtlenecks. But, you know, that was in the old Pike pilots, so I guess that's cool. And when they had scenes where they wore contemporary clothing, well, that really soured it. It just ruined the illusion of what little there was. Another scene that really, really didn't fit well and was not needed was, you know, when they did the scene in somebody's apartment, you know, looked like an apartment in Plano or something. you know, where you could see the 120-volt receptacle right there, and, you know, the regular doors, and they're wearing shirts and ties. Well, that kind of, yeah, that wasn't too good. I really didn't like the scene in the captain's quarters when he had a fight with his wife. I'm somewhat of a gentleman, you see, and if there's one thing I abhor over anything else, it's vulgar displays of emotion. And I found that to be quite pedestrian and uncouth. As for the plot itself, well, half the movie took place with the Enterprise in the dock. Really took a long time to get underway. Then they went over to Jupiter and raided that Buck Rogers 1970-style moon base. And I found it very trite and unoriginal when they used the Independence Day gimmick of planting a hacker device on the computer system, which didn't really serve any purpose. But I like the 50s style bug-eyed aliens. That was cool, but you know me, I'm an old-time sentimental softie. Anyways, that's what I have. KT5ZNJ, back to you, Tom.
Well, thank you, Frank, and that's why I stayed in the original order, because you've pretty much dished it out. A dish served cold. A microwave that doesn't work. Understood. Roger. Roger. Next up, NG5Y Allen in North Garland. Allen in North Garland. You say that. You think he's an Allen, but he's not. It's Allen. Allen, tell us about the plot. What did you think about the plot for Star Trek First Frontier? I have to think about it because I want to say that other movie, which was probably not as good as this one. Alan, what did you think about the plot from KE5ICX?
There was a lot of love in this movie. Definitely had several homages to other Star Trek movies in it. Had Nicole Nichols singing in it, and she did the intro monologue instead of Shatner or Nimoy. And the biggest flaw in it was the wooden acting, and you gotta consider that this is a fan movie, and they probably didn't have budget for professional actors. A lot of green screen in this movie, but you got to consider they didn't have budget for a sound stage and real props. But they did pay a lot of attention to detail. They used the original phasers that were used in the original Cage episode, or Menagerie, however you want to phrase it. The thing that stood out to me the most was already been mentioned. They go out to Jupiter. They're able to run a shuttlecraft into their landing bay, and they didn't even notice. The whole deal with trying to plant a computer virus on their, and the fact that in the end the aliens, just wait till they lower their shields and then we'll blast them all to smithereens. Too simple a plot device to resolve the issue, but if they just had a little better writing on getting rid of the aliens, I would have enjoyed it more. Overall, I'd give it a B+. NG5Y back to net.
All right, thank you, Alan. We should just put out grades on the film. I kind of like that idea, actually. That's pretty cool. Maybe we'll do that going forward, and then people can, say what they think. Give it an F for fine film. when appropriate. Okay, WT9V, Michael in Plano. No, he did not see the movie, but tell us what you think about Star Trek and fan films. Come on, I know you've got something to say. From KE5ICX.
Yeah, y'all haven't really given me a whole lot to work on yet, other than nobody's been happy with this one. I think I saw something a while back that was a fanfic for, a Star Trek thing, and I was like, well, this one's interesting. I like it. I want to see more. I haven't seen more, but this one's not sounding too more-ish at this point. I don't know. I'll have to reserve comment and wait until it comes back around and see what everybody else thinks. Whether it's worth trying to spend some of my paltry free time on at this point, or take Frank's advice and just nope. WT90.
All right, Michael. Well, yeah, that's a big response to which is to be expected because you haven't seen the film. By the way, if you're on the video, yeah, you can see I kind of got like this bruise thing on my face, on my lip. That happened because I put new furniture in the living room, and I managed to bust my face on a table while I was grabbing something that was falling off of something else, and I managed. So I kind of got this like lip thing going on. So when you look at it, you go, "What the hell happened to you?" That's what happened to me. I had new furniture. I put it in, and I hurt myself putting it in. So that's that. For the rest of you on the radio, I moved the microphone up a little closer so you can see it. But no, I was not in a fight. Next up is Brenda, WB5OZL, over in DeSoto. She did see the film. Brenda, what did you think about the plot from KE5ICX?
This is WB5OZL. For the record, I did not pick this movie. I have picked one movie in all these years, The Creeping Terror, and all the others have been picked by somebody else. Just want everybody to know that. He keeps throwing out these movies, and he never tells us who suggests them, and then he tells everybody that I did, so I get the blame. This just isn't fair. Okay, this movie, I did have some trouble understanding it because the sound was so bad. So maybe it was brilliant, and I just wasn't aware of it. Yeah, and I want to give these people a lot of credit. It's a fan film. They put a lot of love in it. And I probably wouldn't make anything nearly as good as that. And they probably had a lot of fun doing it. So, I want to be kind to them. On the whole, for what it wasn't that bad. A lot of it, they copied off of Star Trek a lot. So it kind of wrote itself. I like the old books sitting around. There are no books in Star Trek, except in this, and they're old. They look like books I have on my shelf from when I was in college. Old books, and they never explain that why they have books, bound books. Yeah, the aliens are pretty strange, and it was kind of predictable. I'll give you that. The captain is psychologically damaged, but there's this crisis, so they have to bring him back in. And it's like, I don't think Kirk ever had PTSD, but boy, he was always trying to retire and then being brought in because nobody else in the universe can do it. You're the only one. And so they agree to it. All right, I'll quit there for now. Back to net, WB5OZL.
WT9B recheck.
All right, thank you, Brenda. Now Michael is chiming in. He woke up. He's taking his medication. Go ahead, Michael.
I wouldn't say that. I just looked on the video, and I just want to know what the other guy looks like after, your apparent fisticuff. I mean, I know you're saying it wasn't a fight, and you didn't get popped in the jaw, but it was Brenda, wasn't it? Tell the truth, Tom. She hit you. WT9B.
Oh, thank you. I thought you were going to go after Brenda. You went after me. No, it was just something. I got rid of some old furniture that was been in the house for years and years. So I brought the new stuff in. I had some help with someone, and as I was plugging things in, furniture that you have to plug in, truly it did. Something was coming off the table, and I went to grab it, and I wasn't looking where I was going, and I managed to smash my face into the table where the thing was falling off of because I had my glasses on, and so I ended up with this lip thing. It looks like something from I don't know, what was that movie? The one with the bull. At any rate, yeah. But I'm okay. I'm fine. It'll go away eventually. It's not a dueling scar. That would be cool, but no. All right, next up is Roland, K5RFC. Roland, what did you think about the plot for Star Trek First Frontier? Yeah, I have to think about it. What first what? Go ahead, from KE5ICX.
This is KE5RFZ. Actually, the name's Darwin, D-A-R-W-I-N. And sometimes I mumble a little bit, so it may not have come through very clear there. But this one was a decent show. I would give it a good B+. I do like Pan-Six. It does show a lot of care and a lot of love for the genre. It was a little bit strange. I've noticed kind of a tendency in other movies. They tend to try to draw on things that are happening in our world around us, kind of pique our interest and make us want to watch it. In this case, it's a virus. Everybody's afraid of the virus, and here's a virus being used and engineered by an alien race, and we have to find a way to defeat it before it infects the entire planet. It's just kind of interesting that way. But the acting was good. The plot was, like I said, a little bit thin, but it was interesting. So I'll leave it at that. Kilo Echo 5, Romeo Foxtrot Zulu. Back to that.
All right, thank you, Darwin. I'm sorry. I was having some trouble. I'm thinking something's wrong with this. The call sounds right, and I was thinking of Roland, who also checks in on this net, but he's got a 1x3, I think. And so I'm confused. Plus, I hit my head on furniture today, so maybe I'm confused in more ways than many. And thank you for your comments. Next up, and we'll go down the list here on characterization in a bit. KG5BZW, that's Jay near Weatherford. He's on Echolink, though sometimes he's over on RF. We don't know. It just depends on propagation. Jay, your thoughts on, you did see the movie, so what your thoughts on the plot from KE5ICX?
Okay, this is Kilo Golf 5, Robert to the Whiskey. The plot, I'm going to have to, sorry, I'm going to have to do something to my radio here. 1 second. Okay. Get rid of that echo. Okay, so, yeah, there was a few things that, were kind of stolen, I guess, from other films and whatnot. It just occurred to me a few comments ago that, yeah, the Okay, they didn't quite steal the idea of uploading a virus to some thing. They just used some general, it's binary code, it's all universal, blah blah, and all that, which is kind of the same idea, but not in some sense. Just we're not using it to tell their other computer systems to do something. So it's slightly more powerful, but still not really. And then, of course, there's the scene in Independence Day where, oh shoot, I forget who that character is. Anyway, the guy was the fighter. It's a little bit earlier in the film, not when they're taking care of the big guys, but taking care of, anyway, there's a scene where there's a fighter that it goes right up and fires a missile, and a mothership, a big ship, I can't even remember what those ships were, and, it's right out when that thing fires, and that's how it takes it down. So that was kind of stolen from there. Anyway, I'm being kind of roundabout in how to explain it. It's two simple concepts that I'm taking 10 minutes to explain here. Okay. What else about the plot? It kind of, I don't think it was a waste of time to watch, but boy, they have some oddities. Some, I'm pretty sure, was due to the fact that they probably only had, they only had so much budget to do, whatever ships. They kind of, it really didn't make any sense for them to have already, the Enterprise already had one thing that kind of blew up, and then that affected the space station, and then I don't know. It just kind of danced around a few things, and it turns out there was a second thing that could have blown up the ship. The first thing didn't even harm the ship, but it was still from the Enterprise, so it didn't really explain that well. The first blast, I mean. What else? It had Barry Corbin in it. Not necessarily, Star Trek. I don't know if he's been in Star Trek Wise or what, but local guy, kind of local, Texas local anyway. Been in a lot of films. That's really more characters. Yeah, the plot just the acting wasn't. I guess besides Barry's little bit of doing, which he didn't have to do much. Yeah, it's probably good, but it was a little wooden. But I don't know what to say. I didn't hate it, but it did seem to be kind of smashed together and kind of pointless, except for, the obvious, okay, the captain saved the day and, everything. They're about to go on their new explorations and all that jazz, just like, regular Star Trek. So, I don't know. I can't think of anything else. I'll leave it at that. 85 BDW back to that.
All right, Jay, thank you. And don't worry, I get it. I had a similar problem about the plot and what was going on. But I got some comments at the end of this about the plot. Next up is KG5PMN. That's James somewhere in Oklahoma. Yeah, he saw the movie. James, what did you think about it? From KE5ICX.
05, Papa Mike November, James up here. I'm just a little bit east of Walters, Oklahoma, in the southwest part of the state. Or at least that's what they classify it as. The plot. Well, the plot kind of had a flow to it, and it flowed, and it, you know, with the everything going on with the aliens, and never was real sure how that one showed up on the Enterprise the first time. Just kind of seemed to appear out of nowhere. I'm not sure how he actually got on the ship, but maybe I just missed something in there. It started off kind of slow for me. Didn't think I was really going to understand it too well, but it worked out okay in the end. But to me, there was too many interpersonal interactions in there that kind of got in the way of the overall plot, and scene jumping too many times, jumping to various control stations, or whatever you want to call it. Too many scene jumping to kind of follow it too well. Guess they had too much interpersonal interactions in there, and then that one comment about the ship blowing up, the alien ship at the end. I guess they had spent too much time on other stuff, and all of a sudden they had to think about, how do we get rid of this thing? Oh yeah, we'll take 30 seconds and just manage to shoot something into it at the last minute when the shields are down. Back to the neck, AG5BM in.
Well, James, I think you got more out of it than I did, but thank you and for filling in some of the blanks on the story. Well, I'll give my comments in a little bit on the storyline here in a moment. Sean, KB9SOK. Sean, your thoughts, and you did see the movie, so your thoughts on the plot. KE5ICX.
Yeah, I think everybody's done a good job kind of covering the issues with this movie. But to kind of echo what Kenny had said, I think this plot has been done multiple times on Star Trek before with the reluctant captain not really wanting to step up or come back from a tragedy of some type. So yeah, we've seen that multiple times. So I would have liked to see them do something definitely there. And then yeah, obviously the ending was, you know, seems like that's been taken from a couple different movies as well. Yeah, the plot seemed like it did jump around some, and it didn't explain everything. I think there's definitely some editing issues there. And as one person had mentioned, the audio on this thing was just absolutely horrendous. It seems like I was constantly having to work the volume up and down to try to hear this movie and not get my ears blown out during the explosions. And I realize this is a fan film, but you think that stuff could have been taken care of in editing, because I've seen much homemade stuff look better now when it comes to audio. But other than that, not a whole lot. And I would probably would have rated this a C-, and quite honestly, I don't think I would recommend it to Star Trek fans. That's all I got. KB9SOK, back to net control.
All right, Sean, and you are not alone. A lot of people felt the same way. Let's see. Let me go ahead and ask if there's additional check-ins before I give my comments. Additional check-ins. If you would like to join us this evening for the Afterglow Movie Net, tonight's movie is Star Trek First Frontier. It was a fan production, took 5 years to make. It happens before Chris Pike, you know that guy, you remember him. He was featured prominently last year on Discovery and back in 1966. Yeah, he goes back that far and is in a couple of the movies, but he's nowhere to be found. He's not there. This is, we're talking about Robert April, the first captain of the Enterprise. So if you'd like to join us, that's fine. You can even talk about Star Trek if you haven't seen the film, but I will take additional check-ins. If you want to join us, please come down with your call sign, name, location. Did you see Star Trek First Frontier? All right, I scared everybody off. That's okay. I understand. So my comments about the plot, to be honest with you, I kind of got bored with the plot. It is Star Trek tropes throughout. You got to have a captain that is tired of space and doesn't want to do anything. Geez, Captain Kirk did that. You got the beauty pass that you get in the thing, which is overly long and played to the same exact music they did in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, James Horner's music. We've seen that movie a zillion times in Star Trek III. We've seen that, and we get the same thing. You get Star Trek, the motion picture, where they get on the bridge, and you get the same shots. My problem with fan stuff, and Frank brings this out too, is that, and so do some other folks, is that if it becomes too predictable, then you're not making an original movie. What you're doing is you're just recreating something that the professionals have done before. And when that happens, then you're not creating something memorable. You're creating something that's rememberable. But not memorable. So I don't know. There were elements of it that I thought were good. Some of the actors were okay. The acting was the acting. You had some professional people in there that was mentioned earlier. And that was fine, and they did the best job they could. The April character was fine. All I wanted to do was find a razor and shave his face, because I don't think Starfleet would allow that, but that's just me. He looked like he'd, reminded me of Anwar Sadat. How do you get it to always look the same, like you haven't shaved in 5 days? And I guess you do whatever that is, number 5 razor or something. But in any case, I found that very distracting. Well, we can go into the costumes and that later in the set. But the story, it also has been done before. Not necessarily at Jupiter, and why it took 8 hours to get there. I guess the star drive wasn't working. So plenty of time to talk to all the characters. Here's another thing. Oh, well, that's for characterization. The story plodded along. I think that if they had cut this back to 1 hour or 55 minutes or 45 minutes or 44 minutes, which is typical of episodes, 55 minutes back in the 60s, 44 minutes today, yeah, they've added that many ads to advertising. I think they would have had a much better story, but they wanted to create a motion picture. And if you're going to build an 11-foot Enterprise at a cost of $30,000, you want this thing to look as good as possible. And I think sometimes, even though you don't have the money to do the very best, when you do get money, you do the best you can with what you got. But like so many movies we've seen that fall off, go off the rails, the story suffers. In this case, not enough story. The special effects were good for what they did. Let me reset. But everything else suffered because of it. You're spending money. You're spending a year to build an Enterprise that looks really great, but then, you aren't doing the live action stuff. And they had live action stuff first and then did the special effects, but they're thinking about everything that has to do with science fiction production, which is any one of these things can kill you. It's a landmine. and this show actually kind of fell into the landmine thing, which is what happens with just about every movie we ever talk about, unless they have gigantic budgets. And that is, something's got to go. And I think on this one, it was the storyline that went away. We've seen all this stuff before. Just find and replace, take every Star Trek movie ever made, put it together, rename Captain Pike, that sort of thing. You have a grand opportunity to really transform it into something very unique and very different. Star Trek was about stories. It was about the human condition. They were all told, and yes, they stole from everything. Steal from the best. Steal from Shakespeare. Steal from Greek mythology. Don't bother with telling us an origin story and how we're just so, overwhelmed by the whole thing. Let me reset again. When the original series came out, we weren't told anything about an original story or origin story. We were plopped on this starship in the middle of this adventure. We had to figure out who the characters were. We had to figure out what this ship was and where did it come from and all of that. Well, yeah, 54 years later, we know all of that. But that doesn't mean that you can't just do it. Put April on the Enterprise. Let him be the Captain Kirk, but make him totally different. Make him different than Chris Pike. His wife is there, fine. She's at a command console, and you're talking, and you say, you need to do this or that. And she looks back and says, I don't think so, or otherwise does the command and then dresses him down later on privately, and you find out they're fighting and they're still on the same ship. That would be interesting. But this whole thing about, come on board, we want you to be the I don't buy that. And then suddenly he's happy he's on the ship. That's very, the plot lost, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, that's enough for me on that one. KE5ICX. Let me go to the top of the list. Frank, run back to the radio, Frank, and tell us about the characterization. And maybe never mind. KG5ZNJ. Zombies need job. Frank, tell us about characterization.
This is KG5ZNJ. Tom, I got on the YouTube there, and I saw your lip, and man, first thing I thought was, maybe Brenda got sick of you picking on her all the time, and maybe she drove up there and fed you a knuckle burger with double cheese. Holy moly! But I'm glad you didn't get a tooth knocked out. That can happen real easy if you get hit with furniture and stuff. So hopefully that'll heal up there, and no big deal. I was just thinking that we did see a good fan-made one about a year and a half ago. It was the one that was based on Mirror Mirror. I think that's what it was. But it was actually really well done. Like that one, I didn't have much to say bad about that one. That one was really fun. In fact, I know they made a bunch of them. I'd like to watch more of those ones. But this one was sour, man. Ugh. But the other thing, I just thought of this. Why was the guy going out for a walk in warp drive? Was it to give it extra power or something? Like you had to go into some panel somewhere and turn a wrench? Didn't make any sense. But characters, well, we had Captain Robert April there, Bobby Bedhead. He was all right, I guess. If you frame it with the expectations of a fan-made film, he was all right. And at least he didn't have too much of a pot belly going. And he had more than 50% of his hair, which was I couldn't say the same about some of the other characters. You'd think that with all the technology they have in Star Trek, that they got the transporters and the food replicators and all that. you'd think they'd have a pretty good hair club for men, and unfortunately, a lot of that cast just, I'm not one to talk, but man, oh man, they should look good, they should be in shape, they should be in condition, yeah, not very good. The Captain Collins guy, the guy they had to put in suspension there, man, he looked like a guy they lured in from the alley, with a free bowl of soup. Honestly, good Lord, he was rough. And I don't know, the rest of the characters not very memorable. Probably the best actor was the captain's wife. She was actually a pretty decent actress. She probably did a lot of community theater shows. I don't know. She was the only one that was plausible, I thought, really. But yeah, not much else to say. This one, anyways, KG5ZNJ, back to you.
All right, thank you, Frank. And yeah, well, I may have a better film for you next week, so hang in there. I have oxygen headed your way. NG5Y, Alan, what'd you think of the characterization from KE5IC? Oh, by the way, we're talking about Star Trek First Voyage, a fan-made film that came out like last week. So NG5Y. Alan, what did you think of the characterization?
Well, I've been looking on Internet Movie Database and looked at the cast. As far as the characters go, I thought it was a little cliche that they trotted out the captain doesn't want to be the captain anymore and wants to just stay on Earth. I did like that they put an Andorian as the communications officer, and kind of would have liked a little more character development on that. They had a few juicy bits in there. Getting out of characterization and just more critique of the film, they actually had a decent cast of actors. They all had a good resume of previous projects, but the director, this is seemingly only his own second campaign, and so maybe that's why it came across with such wooden acting. I watched the movie on my computer, and I did not notice the sound problems that the rest of the people mentioned, but I noticed in the cast of actors that they had a Harry Mudd character, and for the life of me, I don't remember Harry Mudd being in this movie, so it must have been that he only had a cameo and I sneezed and missed it, or maybe I was asleep at the wheel, but I never saw the Harry Mudd character. So that's my synopsis, NG5Y.
All right, thank you, Alan. I've got an answer for you on the sound thing. I have found through the years of watching amateur films, films that go out trying to be motion pictures, and this is one of them, that the 5.1 sound that they create are usually problematical. I even find it somewhat difficult on professional productions. The dialogue doesn't always come up to snuff when you're doing 5.1 sound. So what I do is I dumb it down to simple stereo, which means everything's got to come out of these two speakers. And so that's what I did when I watched it last night in preparation for tonight's net. And the audio was okay. There were a few times I had to turn it up a little bit, but I was okay. But I think people that were listening in 5.1, and I think they did it in 5.1, found it extremely difficult to listen to. And I read reviews on it, and everybody had trouble with it. I did not. That may be why you did not. You were listening on your computer and not through 5 speakers on a wall somewhere. So I think that's probably what it was. So I would recommend anytime, you know, you already know this. You watched it on a computer, you had 2 speakers, and it came out fine. They say they're going to go and fix that sometime in the future. I don't know. I don't know how much money they got left. The guy that produced the thing has the 11-foot model in his living room, and he pushed the coffee table out of the way. So I think that if anything is a demotivator, is that he's not going to do the sound because he can't sit down and drink a cup of coffee because the Enterprise is in front of is where his coffee table is, and 11-foot Enterprise is in front of his TV, so he can't even watch that. So I think it's a demotivator. Next up, WT9V. Michael, what do you have to say for yourself from KE5ICX?
I want an 11-foot Enterprise. I'm not sure where I'd put it, but, you know, now that you've mentioned it, I want one. I'm not sure where I'm going to put it, but, yeah, I don't know. I still don't have anything good to say at this point, other than, I've noticed how every time there's something terrible in the way of a movie, the first thing Brenda does is say, "I did not pick this movie." Makes me think, I don't know, makes me suspicious. I think she's protesting too much. What do you think, Tom? Did Brenda pick this movie? Tell us the truth. She did, didn't she? WT9V.
I'm pretty sure she did, because she had exclamation points. Hey, it's a new Star Trek is out, and then she says Star Trek First Frontier, and she liked the captain with that beard thing going on. So she went on and on with a hunk, and so all right, Brenda, we'll watch it. So I put it at the top of the list. We had some fantastic film. I think it was Stanley Kubrick film, so we put it aside so she could talk about, Star Trek First Frontier. I can't get that mixed up because that other film was different and better. Okay, Brenda, WB5OZL, please go ahead with your comments on characterization, and make it long because I got to make a quick trip. And I'll be back, but I'll be listening to your comments because you love this film. Tell us more from KE5I6.
This is WB5OZL. Yes, I do love this film, and that's why I recommended it to you, and I really appreciate you putting it on the list so that everybody could enjoy it. I have lots of more films like this that are going to be so good to watch. I'm thinking we need to do Santa Claus Conquers the Martians before Christmas time, right? It has Pia Zadora in it. And Creeping Terror, let's put that one back up again. This is a losing battle. I'm not even going to try and fight it. Characters. Some were okay, some weren't. The costumes were just awful. They used velour, and they should have used polyester because they tuckered and wrinkled and puckered. And real Star Trek always has costumes that are so spiffy. You can't move in them, but I think they sew them on while they're standing there. There's, they're like sprayed on. There's no, and they'll fit right. Of course, they can't sit down, but who cares? And this one of the guys, you could even see the line of his T-shirt underneath it, which I thought was a little strange. There's no T-shirts in Star Trek. What were they thinking? And they were ugly colors as well, the mustard. Characters. April's dad, I thought that was odd. I wasn't even sure why he was in the story. That's Barry Corbin, who was on Northern Exposure and a whole lot of other stuff. He's an old character actor. But I used to like him a lot, but he should have stayed out of this movie. He didn't add to it. What else about characters? I think there's like the routine obligatory conflict, because, you know, they read somewhere that's what you're supposed to do. I just didn't think it was very well done. All right, back to net, WB50ZL.
Well, thank you, Brenda, and that was a wonderful dissertation, and we're happy you picked this film. It was almost as good as Titanic 2, which is another one of your films. Next up, KE5RFZ, that is Darwin. Your thoughts on characterization for Star Trek First Frontier from KE5ICX.
Well, thank you, Tom. This is Kilo Echo 5, Romeo Foxtrot Zulu. I kind of enjoyed having the Andorian communication officer in the side story with her being royalty from Andor that is now fleeing her title to pursue adventure. I think that's kind of interesting. I think they could have done a little bit more with that. And who knows, maybe there's going to be a sequel and they'll really stand on it then. I did like the guy from Northern Exposure. I liked him in that role, and maybe he didn't add a lot to this movie, but I was kind of grateful that they brought him back out just for a little bit. It just let me know that he was still around and doing something. So maybe it wasn't a great role in the movie for him, but it was worth seeing him again. The other characters, I did kind of agree with Brenda's comments on the costumes. They could have done better. In some cases, I think they ran out of a budget for the costumes, and they were using painters' smocks for an over smock for some of the work. It was interesting, but you could tell it was a low budget affair, but it was worth it. Kilo Echo 5, Romeo Foxtrot Zulu. Back to you.
Thank you, Darwin. And let me interject this for now, and that is that I watched there was an hour interview with the two guys that actually produced this thing, and while they were talking to him, I guess they were on the phone or Skype or something, they had overlays of all the pictures during production, all the photos that were taken. And one thing you notice that's interesting is that first off, they show the Enterprise and building that thing out, which cost them $30 grand. Sans labor. No, that was just in materials. The other part was the set itself and the tons of lumber they used to make that thing work. In 1966, when you did this show, you still had union labor, you had money from network television, and they're working with a fraction of the budget that they would have had in 1966, and even they were stretching the budget in 66, and it looked like it later on. Well, even then it looked like it was cardboard. Come on, let's face it. These guys they're working with a budget from 2015 trying to do the same thing that they did in 66, and it nearly took them down. So I'll give him a lot of credit and kudos. The guy that ultimately produced this stuff, it cost him a pretty penny, even with crowdfunding. So this one, it falls into that category of, what do you do when you got limited resources? And most of our movies, the bad ones in particular, but even the good ones fall into this category too. What do you do with the money? How do you make it work? And I mentioned it in the first round talking about storyline, and in this case, this movie suffered from that because they were so obsessed with trying to figure out how to make it look good. And Frank says, fan films are really set out to be, something in earnest, and then what they end up being is something far less because the fan fanaticism, which is what fan is derived from, just dries up really quickly because you do the things you really love and then everything else suffers that needs to happen to make a good film. And that's part of the reason for this net is that everything that we watch, science fiction is a trap. It's a trap. When you make something, you've got to do world building, you've got to do the sets, the characters have to be believable to a certain extent. You have to tell a story that makes sense. And what happens is that's a tall order to fill for any science fiction film because you have to tell the audience this. You got to do it without making them feel stupid. You got to make the thing come off in an authentic sort of way. And science fiction is this oblique, weird thing that doesn't follow that very well. You end up having to try and glue it all together with duct tape and super glue and try and make it work, and it doesn't always work because there's so many things that you've got to do. All right, next up is KG5BZWJ over in Weatherford. Your thoughts on characterization, my friend? Please go ahead from KE5ICX. I'm going to put an asterisk by Jay. He may have gone to the powder room. Let me go to James, KG5PMN. James, your thought on characterization from KE5ICX.
This is KG5PMN. Characterization, well, you had the captain, which was trying to run things, and I guess he did a decent job about doing that. As a fan-based film, I thought it was kind of missing a little bit of characters. He didn't have the Leonard Nimoy, Dr. Spock. He didn't have a character for him that I could see, and the lady did fairly decent, I guess, of replacing Dr. McCoy, but, you had a medical officer, which was there, but I didn't see any. He had a person up running the transporter, but I just showed them just very briefly. It wasn't like Scotty was actually sitting there and involved in any of the operations or any taking his place, really. And the communications officer was there, but it didn't, I believe her name was Lieutenant Uhura or something of that nature. They just didn't really replace her with the new communications officer, and when I first saw that Lieutenant, whatever her name was, communications, I thought she was going to turn out to be something bad for the ship, but evidently she turned out okay, but just my initial impression of her that she was going to damage the ship somehow. And there was one other, I think there was one other character that they didn't seem to replace too well. The characters that played the aliens, when they took the shuttlecraft and got on board the alien spaceship, man, I never really could understand why they didn't ever seem to pick up the fact that they were on board. I mean, it just kind of looked like they were just doing whatever, and it seems like there would have been some kind of sensors to tell them that there was a presence of foreign bodies on board their spaceship. I don't know. Didn't understand that too well. I'll send it back to the net, KQ5BMN.
Hi, thank you, James, and thank you for sticking with us all through this and over on Echolink. You guys get kind of the short end of communications, but make sure that you're always in there. And yeah, thanks. I've got some comments on your Scotty comment coming up. KB9 SOK. That's Sean over in Fort Worth. Sean, your thoughts on characterization for Star Trek First Frontier? I have to think about it every time because I want to say First Contact. Go ahead, from KE5ICX.
Yeah, once again, I think it's been pretty well covered, but yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the captain characterization because once again, it just kind of was a duplicate of what's been done, and I kind of agree with the comments on his looks there, kind of rough, not really up to what Starfleet should be, so that seemed kind of odd, and I thought the character that they had that was supposed to be the young genius helping out in engineering, and they've kind of done that before in Star Trek Next Generation, where they had a guy like that, and he was real nervous and frantic, and I just thought that it just didn't really fit here in this situation. Not necessarily that he acted as bad, but and yeah, the Andorian officer there for the communications, I actually thought that was maybe one of the more interesting characters, just because that was the only person outside of just Earthlings being on the ship. So I thought that was a nice touch. I think they might have over-dramatized the part of her family not approving, but that seemed a little bit thrown in. But I want to mention I really like the advice on the sound. I'll definitely make sure in future movies that don't balance out right to try it just in stereo, because that makes a lot of sense. I didn't even think of that when I was watching it. Which I had, because it would have been probably maybe a little more enjoyable to watch. So yeah, that's all I got. KB9SOK, back to net control.
Very good, thank you, Sean. Let me go ahead and ask if there's additional check-ins. Anybody would like to join us this evening? We were talking about Star Trek First Frontier, a fan-produced movie, 90 minutes long, that came out just a few days ago, and we are reviewing it. It goes back to the original series Star Trek, actually before the original series, before the first pilot, with Robert April, the captain of the original Enterprise. Yeah, I know it's very geeky and it's deep and shallow at the same time, but if you saw it, or you want to talk about it, or you want to talk about Star Trek in general, go ahead. I'll take check-ins now before I make my comments. Please come now with your call sign name. Did you see Star Trek First Frontier? Please come now. All right, they all ran off. That's okay. Let me look over in Echolink. Nothing there. Okay, my thoughts on plot. Now, the good thing is that anytime you are net control, you save your comments for last, which means you get to build on everybody else's comments, which is great. And I just take and make little notes here, and then I said, yeah, that makes sense, and I thought of the same thing. No, I didn't think of the same thing, but it sounds great when I do say that. To me. So, a few comments. Frank mentioned the show we watched, which was Fairest of Them All, which is a sequel to the Mirror Mirror episode by Jerome Bixby, way back in 1967, where you have a pirate enterprise. And that one is probably from fan productions my favorite. I love it. It was well done. It came from Star Trek Phase 2. That production has since wrapped and shut down and all of that, but they had the sets and everything and did a really, really, really good job with it. I really enjoyed it. If you haven't seen it, that is the best of the fan-produced episodes. It plays nicely. And if you love the Mirror Mirror episodes with the pirate Enterprise, you're going to love it. It's a sequel to it. Characterization. One of the things, and Sean mentioned this about the Andorian, that's not the first time we've had an Andorian first officer or somebody who has been very close to the action. In fact, the episode Yesteryear from the original Star Trek animated series had an Andorian that replaced Spock when there was this time rift thing. It was written by D.C. Fontana, which, by the way, the episode that we watched, the episode or the movie was dedicated to D.C. Fontana, Dorothy C. Fontana, who wrote the episode for Yesteryear, which I think some of this inspiration came from, particularly the Andorian part. I met her back in Toronto in 1976, and I think she's exceptional. Unfortunately, she's passed on, but I thought she was one of the greatest writers for Star Trek, and really a very articulate person, talking about the future of mankind type of stuff. I could emote about her, but I won't, but I thought she was great. So in her story, they had an Andorian who was the first officer, and it made for a curious counterpoint, similar to the Spock character. James mentioned a comment about the Scotty character, or Scotty, and I thought the engineer they had as sort of a Scotty character in this. I find it somewhat disconcerting that they just recreate the original Star Trek in all ways. Don't do that. One of the things that really came out in Discovery, Star Trek Discovery, that came out last year around this time, was they constituted the crew of Chris Pike. And the characters that we knew, number one was one of them, and Spock was another. And they took those characters and took them in really interesting different directions. All three of them went off, and there was some retcon stuff they did with Pike's motivation, Spock's motivation, that fit in with what happened in the two-part menagerie back in '66. Discovery went so far as to actually take actual scenes from the original episodes and put them in without any reference to the fact that everything was different. It said previously on Star Trek. What they didn't say was previously on Star Trek from 52 years ago. They didn't say that, but it worked. It worked, and they retconned some of the motivations as to why Talos 4 was so important. Well, the thing about that was it was the story, not the special effects. Not even the actors so much. It was the story that really worked, and then gave the motivations for the actors, and the actors responded in kind. And I thought that was really great. And I think that these fan fiction films, because we don't have the ability, you don't have A-rated actors or B or C. They're volunteers doing their thing. I'm curious that. The writers, I have to admit that Discovery is loaded with super fans of Star Trek, and you see that in a lot of things they do. But they strike out in a new direction. As I mentioned in the previous round, yeah, you got to be passionate about it, but the reverency to how it looks should be secondary to the story you tell. You can do, and Shakespeare did this, Shakespeare could take and put on a minimalistic stage a story, and you put it together in your mind as to what happened. I saw Lynn Redgrave on stage in Ann Arbor one time, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and listened to her go from scene to scene to scene of Shakespeare. I was transfixed by the whole thing, because what she did was she brought the passion, and it didn't matter what was behind her. There was nothing behind her. It was theater in the round, and she produced this wonderful moments from the many different scenes from plays by Shakespeare. Sometimes that's more important than anything. And if you're struggling with special effects and not the story, you're missing out on, I think, what the core of Star Trek was and what good storytelling is all about. There's a movie that I always berate, and it's called My Dinner with Andre, and I always laugh about it, and it takes place in a restaurant, the whole thing. It's 2 hours inside of a restaurant, two people talking, and the one person tells his friend while they're eating about his epiphany and what he learned. It's 2 hours long, and the story unfolds in your head. And it is a wonderful movie. And you really think you're in a restaurant, but it doesn't matter. That's not the point. It's on stage, and these people coming and going are not in a restaurant. And it just these point of views with headshots, with them talking about what happened and how it happened. Those are the stories that we really care about. We put in our heads that whole thought process about what the character is going through and what's happening. And sometimes the special effects, modern special effects, or in old stories like what we're talking about here with, Star Trek, get caught up in the damn frickin' physical reality. It's not important. Go for the characters. Give them an opportunity to open up. You had a bunch of people we'd never seen before. Tell a little bit of their story. Don't show me a remake and a warm-over of the Enterprise leaving dry dock. Don't show me Captain Pike having his remorseful thing through April doing the same thing. Don't tell me the story about the moon with the thing inside, and you can go inside and stop the mechanical monsters. Don't. Tell me a new and unique story. Don't keep bringing back old characters, which is sometimes happens, and even Discovery is guilty of that, in expectation of fan feelings. Don't do it. That just drives me frickin' crazy. And I'm ranting, I know, but let me tell you something that I found interesting. There is a series on Lower Decks, which is an animated series, first animated series of Star Trek since 1973, and it's a comedy. It truly is a comedy. But what they do is they poke fun, and affectionately, they are Star Trek fans, they poke fun at the holes in Star Trek. This last episode that came out on Thursday makes fun of the movie series Enterprise of Star Trek and how they do things and how superficial it all looks, from the oversized letter special effects with the starburst going on, the music of James Horner going over the top, the unnecessarily long beauty pass flyover like they did in Star Trek, the motion picture, and Star Trek 2, they realize and are self-aware of how that stuff plays out and is ridiculous when it's all said and done. We still love it, but they do a good job of explaining it. And I think anybody who's doing any fan production or anybody doing Star Trek with a big budget should look at these things and say, don't do that. That's silly. It can still be love. You can make money at it, but do you really want to do that as a movie? Do something different. Go big or go home. Much like Twilight Zone did, Tell good stories if you can. Make them memorable, and 50 years from now you can say, I'll be dead, and most of us will be dead, but 50 years from now you can talk about a storyline that really, really works. Okay, I went on too long. I'll go ahead and open it up. Anybody have any final comments or anything they want to say about anything about this movie? And then I'll tell you what next week's movie is. Any comments, please come with your call sign. Apparently I went too long, so let me see. I don't remember what next week's movie is. Give me a second.
W5SC.
Oh, you're going to love this. Everybody ready? Write this down. Something completely different from 1989, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. That's next week's movie. Then after that, if I can get it to work, we're going to watch 0 Hour from 1957. That'll be October 17th. So next week's movie, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure from 1989. I'll see y'all there later. I'll see y'all later. 7-3, have a good evening, and remember to buy bonds. This is KE5ICX clear.
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K. Late check-in, Tom, 829 KV.
Oh, thanks. You're a few minutes late, but that's okay. Yeah, next week. I love that movie. I really do. I'm looking forward to watching it again.
Yeah, I'm on TechNet next week, so yeah, I love that movie, and I will be here for Afterglow, Tom. So, absolutely. Playing around on Crossband. I got Crossband finally. I'm like a big boy. I got a bunch of party poopers here in my house. So can't wake up to go tailgate early, but they want to go to sleep very early, too, so I don't know. But I'm going to let you go, Tom. Good night. Thanks for all you do. KE5ICX, 8C9KB, 73.
All right, see you, Roby. We'll talk later. Let's see. I'm going to go watch Lost in Space. I think this is the Ice Princess. No, it's not. This is earlier than that. It's the second season, so it's not the Ice Princess. I can't remember it. We'll figure it out. I'm a big fan of that old crappy television series, so go watch whatever this episode is for the 9 millionth time. See you later. KE5ICX, clear.
Just so you know, I got Striking Distance on here. It's like early 90s, Bruce Willis, a corny cop movie. Very corny. But, good night. Good night. 8-9.